Welcome to Libertarians Drinking Coffee Live. I appreciate you guys giving me a little small chunk of your afternoon at a special time, 1 p.m. Eastern. I know usually it's like 3 or something, but today I had to go 1 because I was doing a bunch of other stuff. As you can tell, I'm insanely busy, which is a good and a bad thing, but doesn't matter. This is not about me. This is a very special Libertarians Drinking Coffee Live. We're talking about someone who is now going to be running for the chair of the LNC coming up here next week. For those who don't know, Libertarian Party National Convention is in D.C. next week. And we have right now 3 people running. 2 of them have already been on my show. And now I have I saved the best for last? We'll find out, I guess. We will figure this out. Someone who I've known for many years, someone who I've seen support the party in many different ways. He's been at large in the past. He's been chair of Florida. He is the man himself, Steven Nekhaila. How are you, sir?
Good, great. Thanks for having me on, Larry. Hope everything is going well up in the Northeast and in New York.
It is horrible. No, it's terrible. We are getting our ass kicked on a daily basis, but thank you for asking. Yes, absolutely. So if you want to follow Steven, you can follow him on Facebook. The link is both in YouTube and also on the Facebook page. It is Steven.Nekhaila on Facebook. So I got to ask you the crazy question.
Certainly.
The chair job, no matter who's done it, has been a terrible, thankless job. It is a very hard job. And for people who don't know, it's a volunteer job. People think that, so the chair is getting paid big dollars or something. That's not a thing. It is a very tough job for very little money. Steven, why are you doing it?
So, going into this, I'm already going into it the mentality that it's going to suck no matter what. But I think it's going to be rewarding no matter what as well. It's a thankless job. You're not going to please everybody. It requires a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of expertise. And it's a little bit of an art too to deal with people, which a lot of it is a people's position. But it's something that I'm interested in stepping up and serving the party as chair if the delegates so have me. I've been on the board for 8 years on the Libertarian National Committee. I served as a Region 2 alternate and Region 2 representative for several years, and this last term is at large. Been under many different chairs, and I've seen what works, what doesn't work, and I find myself in a position where I have very unique real-world experience in the business world. I'm in the restaurant business. I'm actually at the Island Grill in Islamorada right now. I was just at the Wendy's down the street. We just opened a few months ago. We're Wendy's franchisees. We're restaurateurs.
So let me walk down that road for a second here.
Sure.
Having that business experience, obviously you look at the party or look at the organization from that mindset, obviously, right? That's who you are. That's how you see it. Tell me, in the last, say, 4 years, 2 years, 8 years, you picked, tell me some successes you think we've had.
Success-wise, I think that a lot of the successes we have are really due to the staff. More than the board. And I don't mean to say that to demean the board necessarily, but I think when we look at the organization, it's how it's structured. We have to remember that we're sort of a bifurcated organization, meaning you have the LNC, the board, which is a managerial body, and then you've got the staff, which actually gets stuff done and does most of the heavy lifting. They're the ones working 40, 50 plus hours a week to get things done, where the board meets and deliberates and makes decisions. And not to say there aren't people on the board who work tremendously hard and put in a lot of hours. But I think we have made some progress as far as staff goes, as far as getting the data a little bit more organized, as far as I think where the future is headed for where we're going with data and how that moves into fundraising and how that moves into, membership retention and other important things. I think we've made a lot of progress in the last 4 years. We've made some regression, however, in the last 2. But I think overall we've made a lot of progress in some areas.
So let me, on a personal level, as what you've done as at large, as chair of Florida. How about you? What kind of successes have you had?
In Florida, I became chair in 2019 to 2023. Have a great team down here in Florida. I think what I'm most proud of is during my time as chair is really the teamwork and the team. and kind of keeping people together. It's no secret over the past several years, there's been a lot of new faces in the party, and with that, with people, there's always going to be conflict. So to be able to keep a team together and keep everybody goal oriented and results oriented is a feat in itself. Keeping people on task and keeping that cohesion and that morale is always a difficulty. So I've always been proud of that. We've made record-breaking fundraising in Florida during my time as chair. We probably put in at least around an extra 70 to 80K a year over our normal baseline, thanks to some big fundraising initiatives we had. We had some paid fundraisers and things like that. So I'm proud of the strides we made there, and we continued Operation First Step in Florida to really focus on local level candidates rather than higher level candidates, to try to actually get Libertarians elected in places where they can make a big difference and have a really good chance of actually getting it as local politicians.
Let me ask something from you. You have you frozen here. So can you do me a favor? Can you pull out and rejoin?
Sure. Well, it doesn't work. Hold on. Let me allow me to.
I'm glad he did that. That's the right way of doing things, right? Just kind of reboot, come back in again. It's all good. That's what I liked. The reason why I asked him these questions, I'm now going to ask him as he comes back in, and he's back. He's back. Yes. So now let me go back to the second part then. Now that you've had this 8 years of experience, both being at the national and at the local in Florida, what would you do differently now? Those successes. Now tell me about things that you could have done differently or should do differently.
Larry, I played lacrosse for 5 years, and my lacrosse coach always stressed on the fundamentals. And we as a team, we hated it because we ran more than the track team, less than the cross country team. We did nothing but ground balls, throwing, running, sprints, you name it. We were like, man, we want to do the fancy shit. We want to do, things a little bit differently.
That's the fun things, right? Of course, you do fun things.
Stuff, but I'll tell you what, we were beating all the private schools, all the well-funded private schools that would be taking IVs in the arm when we were drinking Gatorade on, the ones that have the nice AstroTurf fields that, if they didn't beat us by enough, then their coach would yell at them, and we whipped those teams' butts. We were a public school. And I think
it's funny you say that, right? I actually I played high school football, right? And same thing. Our coaches were about blocking, tackling, right? That was the same idea. And we were undefeated that year. Totally right. Yes.
Imagine that. Totally correct. It's sometimes it's just going back to the basics that I think really stressing the fundamental points allows us to build the solid foundation to go and do all the cool, fancy stuff that we want to do. So what I really think our biggest opportunity as a board is to return to, let's go back to fundraising, because I think the board would agree in general that fundraising is the most important thing. But I don't think we've stressed the point enough. I don't think we've broken it down into enough goals and actionable steps and discussions to really push the fundraising piece, to push the membership piece, to push the membership retention piece. To look at our ballot access goals and beyond, and really, those are our bread and butter things that we need to do as an organization. So what I'd like to see differently is a real return to the basics and return to, just doing those things really, really, really well, getting our fundraising department built up. Yeah.
You had mentioned once that you felt like there needs to be almost like a professional nonprofit atmosphere or spirit.
Yes.
That's what you meant, that we focus on the basics of getting that done. That's what you meant when you said that.
Correct.
Makes sense. Okay. That's right. You're right. Without nonprofits got to raise money. If they don't raise money, they don't exist.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, right, Larry, because we're a political philosophy, and we're very, very, very passionate about, how do we get our candidates elected? How do we push the message? How do we get people to buy in? How do we make it a splash, nationally? And those are all goals that are reasonable goals. I mean, we obviously want to get our name out there. We want to get the philosophy out there. We want to get candidates elected, but we can't do that without resources. And so, focusing on building our resources and how do we build our war chest? How do we get our membership to grow? Are we doing everything internally that we can do to reconnect with people that maybe have dropped off? Are we Do we know our retention rates? Do we know, do we have our data squared up? Are we exploring new markets? Are we using, are we using 21st century methods to find people through, either buying data or using that data to sponsor ads to find people, or buying new lists and exploring new lists? And, just there's so much that can be done under the sort of same principles as a modern day nonprofit to expand the organization that we're just not doing. We're behind in the times. That I think we have really good opportunities to explore. And as a numbers guy, as a business person, the numbers mean everything to me. So I think as a board, really knowing our numbers, knowing our metrics and our goals and what we hope to accomplish every single quarter, every meeting, I think that needs to be drilled into the minds of our board too. And they really need to understand and help facilitate, the growth of the organization from a more numbers-driven nonprofit and also staff-driven basis, in my opinion.
That's, you're right, but that's a hard thing. I'm agreeing with you, but I'm saying it's very difficult. It's challenging to get a political party that is all about messaging and the philosophy, and then getting to go, okay, that matters, but hey, there's some nuts and bolts stuff we just got to do, right? I mean, I get the good stuff, but there's some nuts and bolts. And I think we as a party, and I'm saying all of us, not just you, me, everybody watching who's libertarian, I think we very often get trapped in it's got to be about principled messaging, and that's all that matters. And we just let everything else fall aside. I think it's a valid point. Can I take some questions from the audience? All right, see if I can grab a couple of these. This is an interesting one. It's a little bit controversial. How is from Joe, who's in Florida? How has Steven voted on the LNC to fund 50 state ballot access this year? Ballot access is a big deal. People always talk about. I mean, we got our butt kicked here in New York twice already. Right. It's a tough thing. How do you feel about that? Do you think it's a good idea? Not a good idea? Where's your head here?
Well, I think without 50 state ballot access, the Libertarian Party is no more relevant than the Greens or the Reform Party. Actually, we become less relevant with less ballot access that we have. And there's a reason why people like RFK are looking at the Libertarian Party. There's a reason why socialists have tried to intrude on the Libertarian Party to spread their ideology, because it's through the Libertarian Party that we have this really incredible access. We have access in all 50 states, although we're maybe not at the moment, but we've typically had access in all 50 states plus DC and Guam, which is extremely valuable if you consider how much, in terms of personnel, in terms of time, in terms of money, in order to gain that ballot access, we're talking millions and millions of dollars over decades. So Kanye West and RFK and others, when they're walking in trying to be the next Ross Perot and they're realizing it's not that easy, Americans are slowly starting to realize that, hey, we don't live in a real democracy. Right. There are barriers to entry, and the political industry is a very there's very high barriers to entry into this industry. And the Libertarian Party, and to a little bit lesser extent, the Greens, have been the only ones that have been successful in maintaining some semblance of competition against the duopoly. So as far as my voting record goes, I've always voted to fully fund ballot access. And quite frankly, I think going into next term, the things we need to focus on need to be fundraising is number one, because without money, we can't fund anything else. Ballot access, number two. Growing our staff is number three, to make us more capable and to also increase our fundraising efforts. And then I'd say after that is really what can we do for candidate support and give back to the affiliates, because in my opinion, and as Florida State Chair, as a previous Florida State Chair, I tend to notice that a lot of the people in my state and other states that donate to the Libertarian Party donate to the LNC. The majority don't donate to the state party. So how do we get that money back to the states to where we're providing value? I think that's really important.
There we go. I hope that answers your question, Joe. Sarah says, fighting for ballot access here in Minnesota as well. Yes, everywhere, 100%. So Jay asked a question. Jay says, the Liberty movement is extremely divided to the point of being broken. I would agree with that. We are in a very bad spot right now. The current LNC has only worked to deepen the divide. That's Jay's opinion. You don't have to agree with that if you don't think so, but obviously Jay believes this. Is there a way to bring everyone together? That's a tough one. Is there a way?
I think there is a way. I think a lot of it comes from leadership. Oh, there we go. I think a lot of it comes from leadership. I think it comes from the top and it trickles down. I think human nature plays a huge role in politics, whether we recognize it or not, including libertarian politics. And I think that moreover, and this may be controversial, but I think that both sides, if you'll say, whether you're Mises, you're CLC, or you're, well, I like to call them a GDI, a goddamn independent, or a moderate, and somewhere in between, most of us are pretty much on the same team. I mean, I think we all want to see the same things. We want to be successful. We want the party to be respected. We want the philosophy to grow. We want to see better candidate support. We want to see better affiliate support. We may be divided over in terms of messaging, perhaps, but I think overall, we need to be very clear as to what are our actual goals. Because if we were to sit down and put on paper, here are our goals. Our goals are to increase our fundraising so we can increase ballot access. Our goals are to provide more in terms of material support for candidates and affiliates, whether it's technology or training or what have you. Our goals are to, get more media exposure, to have, a spokesperson or whomever be out there speaking to the media, talking about the philosophy, hopefully in a way that most of us agree, and spreading our message and gaining more support within the country. Because, at the end of the day, the purpose of a political party is to gain power. And the purpose of organizing a political party is we're a group of minorities that are stronger together than we are divided. And I think 100 men together with the same goals is more powerful than 1,000 men who are not united. So Agreed. I think under that context, if we can actually come together as a party and contribute materially with our time, our effort, and our money towards the same goal, we're going to be so much more effective than we are divided in a time that we really can't afford not to be, nor do we want to be.
I think you're winning some people over because Sarah, she jumps on board. Sarah says, intelligent, concise, and has a plan. No wonder he's talking with Larry. So great to see this. So you got at least one fan.
Awesome.
I think
Thanks,
you have
Sarah.
Another one, though, because Mike says, so he wants to sanitize and stabilize I think he means Libertarian Party, a bit more like traditional parties. How could that be bad? Well, I do think, to Mike's point, and I'm sure you deal with this, you're going to have a group of people in a party who are going to say, no, Steven, this is, we're special, we're libertarians. We don't want to be like the parties at all, right? We don't want to do that. And I think that's part of maybe what, they were talking about earlier, the idea Jay was saying how it's kind of dividing, right? You are going to have a chunk of people who are like, this is a bad idea, right? We just got to be basically activists and that's it. How do you handle that?
It's interesting because the party is definitely full of activists and we definitely need activists, but we also need, we have all walks of life. We have entrepreneurs, we have lawyers, we have activists, we have artists, we have average working class people, we have retirees. So I think everybody can contribute in one way or another. And I believe in putting aces in their places. So if somebody's really good at something, let them do what they know how to do. An activist may not know how to, do the books. But if you have somebody who knows to do the books, let them do the books. Let the activists go out and be your muse. When it comes to organization, when it comes to something like the Libertarian National Committee, I think we do need to be businesslike. I think we do need to be. We need to think in terms of in either business or nonprofit, in the sense of organizing and growing. And we do need to be very metrics driven. We need to be very goal driven. I'm a bit dogmatic about that, but as far as the party as a whole, I mean, people have different things that they want to see out of the party, or they see themselves in the party doing certain things, and there's not always going to be agreements. But there doesn't always have to be consensus either. We have a diverse group of
two pieces who are popping up here. And Ross asked the question, has the party talked to Thomas Massey from Kentucky? Now, I know he's coming to our convention next week about changing parties. He already IDs as a libertarian. Do you want to touch that?
Sure. I don't know if the party's ever come to Thomas Massey and ask them to change. I know he's definitely in our circle, just like Justin Amash. When he was in Congress, clearly he changed over at one point to Libertarian, or first Libertarian congressman. I know the Libertarian Party of Kentucky is very friendly with Mr. Massey, and has a good relationship with him. So, I'm regardless of the L or the R next to his name, I think that we do have a good relationship with Mr. Massey. Now, whether or not he decides to come over, I think we can keep trying.
I agree. Let's keep trying. I'm with you on that. Let's keep trying 100%. If we can get him, let's get him. So in a similar vein, David asks or says, I want an LP that attracts liberty-leaning liberals and conservatives, similar to a Thomas Massey type, right? Not one that promotes the extreme end of our movement that pushes most people away. How do you deal with that piece, with David's concern?
So I think messaging is very important. And my style of messaging has always been to be passionate, but to also educate. If you're going to say something, you want to say it, but you want to educate around it. If we're going to make a point, let's say we want to end the welfare state. Well, we also want to talk about what was life like before the welfare state. How was mutual aid in our country back in the early 20th century? How was that successful? How did that work? Was it better than what we had now? It helped build communities back then. It helped give people a sense of purpose. They actually wanted to give back towards the system, and they were kind of reluctant to take aid back then, but they did so with the understanding they would give back, and there was a social net there rather than this faceless government bureaucracy that actually traps people in a cycle of welfare. So how do we move back to something like that? I think anytime we make a strong libertarian position, and we should be making strong libertarian positions, we also want to educate and make a good argument. We need to be apologists for what we're actually saying. Now, as far as attracting both liberal-leaning, conservative-leaning libertarians, I think we need to appeal to all sides. I mean, there's libertarians out there who are familiar with Stonewall and the perils from back and during the civil rights movement. There's libertarians who are more concerned with anti-war, who want to know our stance on NATO and on Ukraine and now on Israel and Iran and Palestine. I don't think we should be afraid to talk about these things. We need to talk about these things. These are important things. And I think as long as we stick to our guns and to the facts and what makes us libertarian, and, just talking about warfare for a minute, if you explain, hey, every time we fund a foreign war, we're inflating our prices at home, we're making the war profiteers richer, and we're making America less safe. Why don't we focus on ourselves instead of, making the world less stable? These are things we can obviously go in depth into and talk about. But I don't think we as libertarians should necessarily try to appeal only to the traditional conservatives or only to the traditional liberals. I think we should be doing search and rescue on all sides, because as libertarians,
I like that.
we're
Search and rescue. I like that.
we're dynamic, and we have people, from all sides of the political spectrum that call the Libertarian Party home, who find their home in the Libertarian Party. And to a greater point, how will we ever unite the United States under one political party if we're not appealing to the entire United States, everybody's single issues? We're not gonna win them all, but I think that if we're gonna find our people, we have to be willing to look everywhere.
There we go. So we talked about what you saw as success. We talked about what you would do differently and where you are. You answered a bunch of questions. I appreciate that. Where do you see the future of the Libertarian Party? What's your gut tell you? What's this year, next year, the year after?
Back in 2018, I actually reopened the Dairy Queen up here in Tavernier, revived it. I actually used to go there as a kid. Hurricane Irma destroyed it, and it was for sale, so purchased it. And the first round of staff, there was a young man. He was probably about 15 years old, teenager. And he goes, "Your sister tells me you're a libertarian." Well, I'm a libertarian too. My friends are libertarian. And I go, wow, here's a kid, 15 years old in 2018. He went to the same high school as me, and him and his friends identify as libertarian. When I was in high school, I knew I wasn't Republican or Democrat. I knew there had to be something more out there for me, but I never identified as a libertarian, not at least until college, until I discovered the Libertarian Party. So that really shocked me and showed me that we're winning culturally, we're winning hearts and minds, and every generation there's a larger and larger libertarian demographic. So I do think time is on our side. And likewise, as an organization, we need to be growing in order to be ready for that moment when we can truly seize the day and be the effective political force we need to be. At $1 million+ a year, the reality is the Libertarian National Committee is a very small political body. We don't make nearly as much money to be competitive. I'm pretty sure the Florida Chamber of Commerce is many times larger than the LP. The Greater Key West Chamber of Commerce I'm on the board of is about a half or a third of our size in terms of monetary influx. So, we should be a $10 million organization at the very least within the next 5 to 10 years. We should really be a $100 million organization. But
I hope you're right. Oh my God, yes. Yes.
And I think that's where we need to go. That's where we need to really think in terms of growth and how do we grow in terms of membership, in terms of finances, in order to really support the affiliates and grow the affiliates to the professional level that we need them to grow to be effective. Because I think if you look at the Libertarian Party, the biggest problem endemic to the party is growth and sustaining growth and having an organizational mindset. Because when you have a lot of volunteers, they come from very different walks of life and they're not always understanding or into that. And I think that's what really needs to change as a culture within the party is, how do we get the money in? How do we grow? What are things that work that we can replicate? And I do think there are things out there that are very low hanging fruit that we're simply not doing that we can be doing to get to the next level.
There we go. Guys, if you like what you're hearing and you think it's a good idea, then do me a favor, click that like button. Click the button that is like. It's important that you do it so that people see it. And also, if you want to follow Steven and see what he's doing, you can go to his Facebook page. You can head over to Facebook and check out Steven.Nekhaila. Check him out over there. See what he's doing. If you want to support him, ask him a question, bug him for some reason. You can go ahead and do that if you want to on Facebook. He does respond, so that'd be awesome. Steven, anything you want to say as we wrap this up?
I just want to say, first off, thank you, Larry, for having me on. And thank you to everybody watching, all the Libertarian Party members, and all the work you do, putting your time, your energy, and the sacrifices you make to contribute to the party and advancing the cause of liberty. I hope to meet you all in DC next week, and I invite you to support me for chair. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and keep up the good work for liberty. Thank you, everybody.
There we go. I love that. Ross is very happy. He says, great show and guest as always. There we go. We did a good job, I guess, Steven. See that we did a good job. Everybody else, thank you so much for watching this afternoon. I will be back on Monday. I'll be taking the weekend off probably. I might do something this weekend, but I'll probably be off this weekend. I will see all of you